But I mean,
Okay.
Maybe I don't want to say more.
his whole thing is just to keep
Anything.
Well, they're starting to get a little filled up.
Yeah, I understand.
I mean, good stuff, but then, you know.
I had like 2 people reach out, like, can you do this? And I'm like, normally I could, but.
the agenda. Did you go back and,
Trying to finish up the siding
And so, like,
and finish up the back porch.
yeah, I wish I
The plumbers have a half a day. That'll be done. The glass for the shower will be in on Wednesday.
do you know what
And all it's done
I
is
decided? There's no action.
the flooring, the carpet in the mixed bedroom. And then just the trim.
People are saying we said
Other than that, everything else is done inside.
what do you mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
So I signed and then give it back to Val.
you'll be back.
Now, Jamie and Angie, are they there now, or are they planning on moving? I wasn't sure, because I remember talking to her, like, when there's all the housing stuff, and she's like, yeah, I mean, like, you sell and live in it, like, what do you do? So I figured if Angie was there, I would know already by now, but
My tuition
Yeah.
for my grad school.
mainly because Nate is the same age as Jack and Noel, so I would see him once in a while.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. They played on the Raptors together. Until Jack and Noel went to track.
Nate's a good kid.
He is a good
Oh
kid.
my gosh, is that boy growing?
Look out, right?
He's so tall.
I know.
He's like 6'3" or
That
something.
Patty or Ally show up too, or is it next?
They show up the next one.
Okay, well then.
Oh,
It's in my contract.
and I got gutters to it. If I can get the guy to do it.
I don't. You had to bust my chops.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got it. So you should.
Of course, I understand.
You know we need money.
It's getting there, buddy.
We could really use it, right?
I thought you knew.
Well, guess what? Guess who else could? Me.
We had to do those shutters downstairs. He said you got to get them done. He said, a week or two, when I'm ready to do them, they'll be ready.
Yeah, there's still
One from someone?
You want to sign it?
Because you're a thief. Okay. Oh, no, I just need a salt.
10-7.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Is that Joey's? Yeah.
Mike, you have your document. You have to sign it for Patty in there.
Yeah, I already did it.
You already did?
Yep.
You can give it back to me then. Okay. If you're done with it. I just didn't. I had it. I saw it in the file and signed. So.
I saw it there and I'm like, in between talking, really, you're right. Signed it. My emergency stuff and
You could read all open stuff.
they were sitting there, I was just talking to a couple other people.
Come on, I didn't know you liked it.
I have to.
No, you just say it loud.
Okay, let's get this
All right, we'll get the show rolling. Here we go.
Okay.
5:31. You want to use her by now? She's not using her.
Why?
Just for the order.
I was thinking, can I use this as a straight edge? That's kind of.
All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. It is now 5:32. Our mission, Raymond School District, is dedicated to providing a child-centered learning environment, expecting all students to learn and succeed. We commit to providing and utilizing progressive, relevant curriculum, encouraging all students to become responsible citizens prepared to meet the challenges of the future. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education and public for the purpose of conducting the school district's updates, planning, and learning, and is not to be considered a public board meeting that conducts school district's business.
Are we recording this?
It is live stream.
It's
Yes.
live streaming?
Yep.
Yeah, hers went out like halfway through.
Yeah, I'm not sure why, but
So we'll talk
It
loud
is live stream, yep.
and
So, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call of attendance.
Sure. All right. I'll just talk loud. Roll call of attendance. Here we go. Ed Robinson.
Here.
Janelle Wise.
here.
Mike Powers.
Here.
Audrey Cossack.
Here.
Patty Wren.
Here.
Thank you. Verification of public notice pursuant to 19.841 Wisconsin statutes.
Yes, the meeting was posted in all the typical spots.
Okay. All right. I'm going to hand this over to Mike.
Yes, tonight is really meant to be a discussion about a couple of things. You know, the board workshop model is based off of the board having an opportunity to talk and share and learn on topics that are pertinent for future action. So while there's nothing that's going on tonight in terms of business, there are lots of things that we have that are ongoing treatments that we're asking people to be able to work on and work through. So what we're asking tonight is we have a review here of a couple of different documents. So tonight's agenda really has three pieces. There's the mission, vision, core values, goals, and then there's a second agenda item, a topic for discussion, which is related to the referendum planning. And then the third one would be related to the state report card. So I figured it'd be nice for the district, for the board to start to talk about, you know, the report card itself. But I want to start by thanking the board for their service. This is national, or I think it's WASBA is promoting it as the State Board of Education Appreciation Week. So this week is a week that the boards of education all over the state are thanked for their service. There's some snacks for you with our marathon meeting here, so thank you for serving. Staff signed a card for the board on behalf of the staff, and each individual member received a card too, so thank you for what you do. It's sort of a thankless job at times, and we appreciate, yes, that'd be the Raymond School Board card, there you go. So thank you for doing that, and for all you do for our kids and our community. So that said, reviewing this document, this is something that we started back in July, and started having conversations about, and then agreed to just kind of continue to rinse it forward and say, okay, let's talk about it, let it marinate, make some adjustments, and then move through. The purpose of this is this will help some of our guiding work in the spring as we talk about a strategic plan, because these are all elements that are really important in a strategic plan, and many of these things are you know, in practice and existence as we speak. So the mission statement is there, and it's read before each of our board meetings, but also it's part of our conversations and ongoing work. The vision statement is one that we had talked about looking at for the future. This is one that was sort of thrown in there as a filler. We don't have one that I could find unless there's one we can find. But at the same time, that vision is really important. We talk about that as we move into the spring planning session. Our core values, our words and actions, these are the things that we as a board try to act within. And these are pieces that we had talked about when we had our retreat in May. And then we talked about it over the summer. And now here it sits as it stands here with our values. The strategic goals, things that we're talking about as an organization, trying to, as a board, move forward with. Of course, pursuing academic excellence, maintaining high expectations through all that we do, establishing strong fiscal oversight, which tends to be a space we're living in a lot right now with our budget concerns, and then keeping the focus on students, continually improving the community and school pride. So again, those are pieces that we agreed upon within our kind of big four for the board. And then looking at the admin leadership goals, these are the pieces that we had talked about for myself and our admin team to really dive into. It's not an exhaustive list, but it's certainly a list of things that are important for us to work on. So establishing those trusting relationships across the organization, gathering perspectives, being approachable. We are starting a focus team meeting that's going to be starting in a few weeks with our staff to talk about working conditions and culture, professional culture here, which is going to be nice. We've had a couple staff have already said, I'd love to be a part of that team and have those conversations. And so I'm looking forward to getting that started. And then focusing on systems to develop clarity across things we do, HR, handbook, PD, educator effectiveness, those are all pieces that are important that our staff have really indicated as we really would like some clarity and leadership in these areas. And it's sort of the continued journey of an educator. So we also want to talk about that 3 to 5 year plan, strategically thinking about our facilities, our financial plans and planning. This is all starting in the spring of 2025, so a lot of the work we're doing here is gearing us up toward that work. And then, of course, our board has agreed to operate with these particular norms. So these are the pieces that the board has said, you know, this is what we're trying to keep at the core, teaching and learning. We value, respect, and support public ed. We model good learning. Many of you have started to, again, learn and grow as we've got 3 new board members that are here less than a year, and trying to become better board members and become better, more informed citizens of what we're doing here, which is great. We model that through, you know, going to webinars, training. I know you went to a recent training, which was great. People do it all the time, so I think it's a matter of you picking a couple things you want to emulate. Ed and Mike, we've talked about facilities a few weeks ago. I have a conversation with Kent, my former B&G guy, that's going to be, he'll schedule a Zoom call with us to talk about that app, that the company that helps you measure all your energy consumption, and he doesn't even work for them, but they kind of use him as an ambassador because he's a small town, small school guy who believes in their product and their program. So we'll get that started up here soon to learn about what's out there with some of those tech tools. And in terms of respecting the differences between district governance and management, helping you understand your role as a board member, that, you know, as individuals you have your own singular focus, but then as you come together as a board, that's where the change and management comes. And of course, the other pieces that are listed here, recognizing, respecting differences, operating in trust and integrity, to maximize resources, that's a big one right now with us, looking at the referendum piece, and keeping confidential matters confidential, which can be tough. Because obviously in an era where people are looking for transparency, you know, it's critical that we're transparent, but also maintaining the confidentiality where it is for people with various things that go on in our day-to-day operations. So it can be challenging, but it's essential. So where are we with the board's discussion points on this now that it's, I think, the 3rd or 4th time we've seen it up here in this forum? After this, we would have this available. We put it on our website and have it as be part of our sort of standing documents, and put it out there.
Just confirmation with us today? Okay. I think
It's not an approval because it's just a document.
It's
put
just a
together.
document.
It's just nothing official, but we
And
worked
it's a
on
living
this.
document
Yeah.
too.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, because I think you said you don't really, you're not in a position where you would recommend changing anything on our mission statement until you're like here for a year and have some
Right.
perspective on that and can reevaluate at that point.
This was an effort to kind of roadmap a little bit, because the next steps that would come from this is the strategic plan, which ties these elements together. So the strategic plan would definitely be voted on and, you know, discussed and
Yeah, for sure.
and approved. But these are elements that sort of have all been thrown together into a
Guardrails,
roadmap.
as that, yeah.
Yep. Yep.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay. Good. Awesome. On to our planning. So looking at, you know, where we've been in the last month and a half since school started, it's been a great start to the school year. Lots of opportunities for people to come around to school and have conversations. One of the challenges we face is just getting the information out about the referendum as best we can, because it's a small community. One of the challenges I've identified early on is, being new to the community, but also where do you go to pass out information? You know, there's not that establishment, the library down the road, you know, going to the local coffee shop. You know, I do that, I'm in Oak Creek, so or I do that, I'm in Franklin. Actually, I'm talking about Raymond there, they know what it is, but they don't have those conversations. So it's hard for us to have those kind of venues, so we've been inviting people in, having discussions wherever we can. And I just want to talk to the board about, you know, your involvement in this, obviously. The caution here with the referendum is that we're presenting information. We are not in a position of saying, vote yes or vote no, vote either way. It's just saying, this is where we are. Here's what our point in time means. Here's what the numbers mean. Here's how we can move forward. There's a vote on November 5th. So I know there have been lots of discussions with a variety of people outside this room, so just kind of helping us to come together as a group here to say, here's where we need some help. And remember, this was started back in summer, so it really goes back to the beginning of our time here together in school. We had our back-to-school picnic, which was a good success, and we shared some information there. We had our back-to-school PD with faculty and tried to create some clarity with faculty so they understood what exactly was at stake and where we are financially with things. PTO, I went to their first meeting last week, we have another meeting this week, so again, spreading the word there. Trying to help work with social media and get things scheduled is really important, because a lot of stuff is just done right online, so we've been doing that. We had our budget hearing annual meeting, we have our monthly workshops, you're sitting at one right now, so learning and talking about the referendum and having, your understanding get galvanized so you can go out and have those conversations with people. Monthly regular meetings, so obviously looking at board comment sections and saying, is there a way we can capitalize on those as a board to say, here's what we know about the current state of the referendum. I'd recommend that, between now and the 21st, which is our next meeting, you as individual board members think about, what information or comments you want to, put in those sections that we have as open for you to talk about and share your thoughts. We have weekly Wednesday meetings, which are right in the office. We're on the cadence now, we have 4 left. Those are promoted as 9 a.m. It's show up. I have a presentation that I can go over, but based on the audience that shows up, I can, craft it either way. A lot of it's just been open dialogue and what do you have questions about? And there's been some good conversations that have gone on there. I would, of course, welcome more people to come and try to get the word out to spread to say, hey, come. We have our town hall presentation. We had talked about doing something with the board members, and I think those are really taking the form of the 2 presentations in October. So October 15th and October 30th being the 2 kind of standalone meetings, 6 p.m. that we're scheduling. Those are the 2 that were put on the mailer. The mailer did go out. So did you get a mailer?
Yes.
Hey,
Yes.
there we go. Everybody got it.
Yep.
You did not. That's it.
What?
So,
Really?
I've been checking all my postcards.
That's
and
it,
now
man.
Raymond
They
came like,
so
Last week, yeah.
it should have came last week. So the mailer went out. We had 2,115 items sent, and I learned a lot about EDDM and how that all works, which is a whole fascinating
Everybody get one?
process.
Is it another night?
Did
Yeah.
people here get one? Yeah. Okay. That's good. We're better than we were for the picnic.
Yeah.
The picnic was not quite
That didn't
as
pan out.
consistent.
Yeah.
What I did find out though is the zip codes are a little touchy and
Yeah.
some of the routes are a little touchy. So the lady at the post office was very good about helping us out with that. So we used an external printer, which worked out really well. He's a guy in Hales Corners, which worked out nicely. But on that flyer, as you saw, it's got communications of when we're having our, what we're trying to get across in those meetings, et cetera. So that's the goal there. The short clips are part of our media plan that's going to be coming out in a few weeks. Myself and Ms. Rodriguez are getting together to talk about how can we create little 1 to 2 minute informational clips that can go out that kind of define these particular topics. And so that's the next step. We have a few of those that are in edit form, a little raw right now for me to show. However, we've got good footage. Along with this, before each of our meetings, we're going to have a little Raymond welcome video, a little hype video of our great kids doing awesome things. And so Zoe's been working on that to try and get that up in front, and we'll add that to the website once we have it up and running. Again, there's not a marketing budget for this. There's not, a number we've attached to this, but it's really about providing information as timely as we can.
What's your timing on that media plan?
We're hoping that by next week, we'll start to push out on the regular, every couple of days, a video clip that would go out through social media and be available on the website. So we'll have a repository on the website. If someone wants to have all of them in one spot, they can, as they come out and get released. The thought is you build the buzz with, add the new one. It's the McDonald's Happy Meal concept. You gotta wait until the next one comes out, the toy. So
Season 1, episode 1, right?
Right. Season 2, season 1, episode 2 will be released soon, but the goal is to have those basic topics there, and then
Okay.
Every week in our Panther Press, there's a referendum corner document that goes out. We did also have, as part of there was a QR code on the flyer that had families could add their emails, and we have 52 names that have been added to the email list, which is nice, because they're people that, thanks to the kind feedback of a person from the community who recommended we gather people's email addresses. It was a great idea. So we have done it now. We pushed out our first round last week of Panther Press, and the board update went out with that as well. We'll continue with that cycle of as things come. We're not creating things specifically for that. It's just really whatever we're sending to our families is what would go to those people. So that way they can stay abreast of all the things that are going on, in our great community here, so that's the thought. Again, the open house chats are listed here, and then we have a referendum information session. We had one on the 24th. We had about a dozen people here for that, which was great to have. And Tom Johnson's a great presenter and got a lot of energy around his particular, his side of town's, the Union Grove referendum piece. Different than ours, but the same. Is asking for money, but he did an excellent job working with us. And it's been great collaborating. The superintendents got together last week, and just a really great group we have, supportive of, all of us are in different spots. Yorkville's just coming off of theirs. They've got some great information on what worked well. So Mark and I have been talking a lot about, what worked there. Amber's sort of in her own space with Union Grove, because it's just a little different beast there with a lot of kids and all the things they've done, but they have a lot of referendum experience. And so it's been great to have those conversations too. And Tom and I are right there in the middle with just an ask that we're trying to work through. So looking forward to continuing those conversations. And then we have ours, really the 2 town halls that are coming up, the open presentations on the 15th and 30th. So what I've been looking for is, a couple of board members. If not, if you all want to come, great, just let me know and we got to post. But I think we can probably pull it off with 2 or less, at those meetings. Although we can also post if you decide you want to be a part of those. The big key is going to be promoting those and getting that information out so that we know we have an audience. It'll be right here in this room set up. And
Is it gonna be similar presentation style to what, like your portion of the one that we did combine with Union Grove?
a little more probably in depth than what I did for the UGHS, but for the most part, not very long. I'd say the total talk is about 20 minutes with, the ability to have some slides. It was hard, the village meeting I went to on Monday is hard because there's not that presentation capability, but I will go back to the village meeting at the end of October and present there. I want to say it's the last Monday of October, so I'll be there and able to chat it up, so that'll be good. And then, of course, like I mentioned, Facebook and our scheduled social media is pretty regular. So that's kind of the approach. Any ideas, thoughts, people coming to you with things? One person who came to our senior breakfast, and the senior breakfast was really awesome last week. It was really the suggestion of, you got to show a video of the kids.
Yeah.
They actually said, can you bring the band, the kids who were in the rock band, to just play? And I said, that'd be awesome. I don't know that we can orchestrate multiple evenings of that with kids' schedules, but we certainly can do a recording and share, some really great clips of kids doing great things at Raymond, and then roll into your ask. Because it's hard to not, we're about kids, and yet here we are talking about money. So you don't want to kind of roll right into the conversation about, hey, take out your wallets without mentioning the fact you've got amazing kids here and families that have been here for a long time. So kind of taking her feedback was a good suggestion.
One of the biggest things I've been hearing is everyone thinks we're like Union Grove right now. And trying to explain the differences between our referendum and Union Grove's referendum. They're just thinking we're doing it to facilitize and doing this and doing that. And people continue to don't get that we're doing this for operational only. So we have to make sure we're getting that out there, especially the people who don't have internet or don't have that ability.
Sure.
Because they all think we're just asking for money to have a new school.
Right.
Or a new this or a new that. They don't, and that's what even some members that are local community members that have the internet and that they're just not getting. They're just thinking we're trying to be like Union Grove right now.
Sure.
So that's one thing I noticed that we really need to keep hammering home to everyone.
Sure. Well, the type of debt that Union Grove has taken on it presents very differently because, the way their debt rolls off and rolls on is different. And of course, the longevity, the 20-year bond versus a 4-year committed, those both present very different, but we want to make sure we're clear on that for sure.
So, they're really confused about it.
I think I already see, sorry, I was using my phone to pull up the referendum page just to see what was out there, because I was out there last week and there wasn't a whole lot of content out there, but I see some of the newer materials out there.
On ours.
On ours.
Yes.
Maintaining that page, adding the videos as they're getting posted, I think will be huge. Definitely heard from others that looked at, like Yorkville has had a couple of operational referendum, very similar to this, right? And they did the video stuff that's out there. So I think just sharing, exploring what some of the like Yorkville flavors were. I know that that has resonated with some of the folks. Sounds like you're already talking to them and they're sharing what worked there, but
Yeah, he shared a
we'd
lot
love
of
to
the.
see our site kind of mirror some of that
Keeping-
stuff where we have,
Yeah.
and I think like one of the items in particular on here is what is the need? And while I understand that chart, somebody that's coming to the table for the first time trying to understand what the need is, I think we should look at maybe either simplifying that message or putting a video along with it, because it's just, for those that are not
Right.
as familiar with it, it's the thing from Baird that just talks about all the components that go into
Oh,
the
yeah.
budget, so I would
Yeah,
just
that was initially up
suggest.
there from Dr. Agnes.
Yeah, and so if it's not as relevant because we have more recent, docs, then maybe
Build
just
that up.
remove it and,
Yep.
yep.
For sure.
Did you mention, sorry, maybe you did while I was pulling this up on my phone, senior breakfast?
Yeah, we had one last week.
Yep.
Yep.
And was that a discussion that was shared at
I
that point?
shared the dates and times and said, reference the Wednesday meetings. I didn't want to go into too much detail about a presentation at that point. I didn't kind of feel like it was the place, being the first time I'd ever met these people. But mentioned it and had a lot of people that have reached out since,
Okay.
at least 3 or 4 that have said through email, hey, thank you for the event, and I plan on,
Yeah.
coming to one of your sessions, which is great, because I wanted to have the appropriate venue, that.
Could we, like,
give
for
it
the next
time.
one though, say like, hey, here's your breakfast, and then like, stay and we'll talk about the referendum, or just invite, like, if we put that
There
project
won't
in?
be another.
Is it
Yeah,
after?
afterwards, yeah.
No.
Yeah,
It's every
Yeah, we're
month.
already in
Yeah,
October,
right.
holy
it's
cow.
every month, yeah, right, and it's, given the way it falls in November, it's
Yeah.
Unless we do an extra.
Do an extra
an extra senior breakfast. There you go.
Full November, do 2 in
I won't go
October and
last
none
one.
in November.
I mean, it was good French toast, for sure.
Jeez.
Yeah, so we certainly, we can capitalize. I mean, here out, we've got crunch time. We've got four
Yeah,
Wednesdays and 2 sessions worth of information, and then the village meeting. So again, making sure people understand all those opportunities to discuss.
yeah.
Can I make a recommendation? Sorry.
Yes, ma'am?
So Jennifer and I were on the board when this referendum. And one of the things that I did, again, it's a very particular line that you need to walk as board members with sharing information and not suggesting how somebody votes.
Right.
But I probably, in the weeks leading up to the election, called 50 to 60 people in the community, people that I knew or people that I knew, friends of friends, right?
Right.
To be able to remind them to vote, when is the election, right? To make sure that they're aware. Again, you might have to be living under a rock to not know that there's an election, but again, some people.
But that this is on.
The election
yes,
for
right.
sure. I get lots of robocalls.
Time just moves fast. And so I, again, personally called probably 50 to 60 people just to remind them, hey, this is John Peterson, I'm on the board. I want to remind you about the upcoming election, that there is a referendum question related to Raymond School. It's very important, right? And then I asked them if they had any questions. That made me have to be prepared.
Right.
Certainly to be able to
Right.
speak to it. And if there was something I couldn't answer, I wanted to be honest about that. And then I took the question and then reached back out to our superintendent at the time to make sure that I was getting the right information. Because certainly didn't want to share wrong
Right.
information.
No, that's your worst.
But that outreach, again, was personal for me. I took it on. Not all the board members did.
Right.
But can be another avenue, right, to open up and, again, be welcoming, but also a nice reminder.
That's a good comment.
Yeah, absolutely. I know where I came from, they had phone trees kind of set up across groups of people who were interested in making those calls. So I think it's, it's a good hustle point, especially, it's got to be timely, and I think we're in the right month.
Yeah.
For sure. There's a point of too early in the game.
Yeah, right.
But I think there's
it's,
also the point
sort of
now.
it's close enough, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We're a month out
Sure.
from critical time.
Sure. I think the election can't come soon enough in many of our minds, just because there's a little fatigue going on, but yeah, for sure.
Oh, missed commercials.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So, any other thoughts about plans?
No.
I did set up a meeting with one of the faith-based groups. They had shared some dates with us for like a lunch they're doing in mid-October, so I reached out to them to see if I can come talk to their group, and again,
Do
if
we
you have
have,
groups that I can meet with, I will.
is, maybe not everyone on the board is willing to do this, but is our phone number on there or email so that if folks wanna get a hold of us that may know us, but don't have our phone number, don't have our email?
Folks on like the website, or
Yeah, something where if they have a question,
we certainly can push out a number that would be able to be,
cause I'd put my phone number on it, yeah,
sure,
tell people what I, know and don't know.
sure. Telemarketing ed,
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
And another
I get a lot of them calls.
that's it. That's it. Well, how would you like to get a timeshare?
Yeah, right? That's what it is.
But I think for sure,
Targeting
having
is
those targeted conversations are really,
Yeah.
it's important to be strategic about it. So if we can put some energy around some of those, generating a few call lists and seeing if that would be, I think, a good effort. And then, I mean, obviously, if anyone ever calls here at school and they want to talk, we're available, but I don't know how many people are doing that at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts about this?
Nope, not for me.
Okay. So we'll continue, I'll reach out about the events and just try to get a general gist of who's able to come. Shoot me a message and let me know about your availability. Again, we tend to have one or two available on Wednesdays, board members, that are on Wednesdays, and if not, then the 15th and 30th are good target dates for the after-school crew, so. Okay. Awesome. On to our third topic, which is state report card. So, looking at this, I wanted to get ahead of it because it's something that happens kind of as school has rolled, and we're looking at data and scores and getting ourselves back into examining things. I don't know how much the board has spent, talking about the state report card and what it means and how the score gets developed. The state report card comes out in the fall. It's public. It's put out there as a number, and we at Raymond, have our score. Every school has their score. Every district has their score, and that in some cases is what people go to when they're doing some initial searches for, where do I want to live? Where are the best schools, et cetera. Some people take it more seriously than others, but I think it's, no matter where you sit with whether or not you find value in it, it is a number, and it's a number that we want to make sure we understand, as we move forward with stuff. So obviously this is our mission. We have various assessments this year that we're working on with regard to gathering information about kids. So while the state report card is one of those outcomes that gets generated from mostly forward exam and some other calculations, we used to use map testing, now we use FastBridge. So FastBridge is something we moved to this year for grades 2 through 8. It's given 2 to 3 times per year at the classroom level, and it's given to all students to figure out, okay, what's the baseline, what's your midpoint, and then of course you want to see growth over time. So the FastBridge results, which are not calculated into our state report card at all, are a really localized choice that we are choosing that FastBridge approach. Not every district uses FastBridge. Many do, but at the same time, it's one of those tools. We used to use map testing instead, which is another vendor. We feel like the tools that FastBridge gives teachers to be able to differentiate and use it for helping improve instruction is better than some of the initial map tools. But
Can you explain FastBridge a little bit more?
yeah, students log in. It's an online test. Most of our tests are online now. They log into the system and they take, it's not timed, but it's kept in that you can measure the amount of time a student takes. Typically anywhere from half hour to an hour can be how long a student takes. Some students are done in 5 minutes because they just click through and don't necessarily take it with the most seriousness that they should. We do have the ability to reboot and restart a kid if they didn't the first time take it as seriously as they probably should have. Teachers do an excellent job of setting kids up for success and saying, here's how we want you to take it, and here's what we're looking for you to do, and here's the purpose of taking this test. And it's in core subject areas, so reading and math, English, reading, math, and they have additional subtests you can do in social studies and science. But we're diving in right now on English and math predominantly because we want to get measurements on the baseline for students in those areas. So it is leveled to a point, and obviously they're taking it when it's written at their grade level, the tier of instruction that they're kind of at the most likely to have success with. there are some gradients within that move up and down based on the student's ability to navigate the tests. So it can get harder for those kids who are really looking for, having success and trying to push those students to get a better score. And it does adjust a little bit back for students who are showing that their reading levels at a certain level. So they're giving them questions that are kind of in that zone of development that they're in.
My
So,
question to this
yeah.
is, so teachers know their students.
Mm-hmm.
Does she get to review the results of each student and then say, I know this kid's way smarter than this. He did something, like you said, he just popped through it and didn't
Yes.
pay any attention.
Yes.
Then to give to have a one-on-one with them and say, hey, listen, this is important. It's all about you, and retake it.
We have had those conversations.
Okay.
They definitely happen. I think, most of our kids, the good news is most of our kids do take it seriously, so
Okay.
it's not a whole lot of students that don't.
Yeah.
As kids get older, where I went and where I was in high school, as a leader last year, kids went in intervention based off some of these results. And so if you don't want to go into intervention, which is an extra obligation you have to try to learn more, learn better, and fix some things.
Okay.
If you don't want to be in that, then you got to do your best on this particular test at the high school level.
Right.
Elementary, they tend to lean into it really well, and for the most part, the kids take it seriously because they're good kids and they want to do well. If they don't, then we do adjust. Teachers can see individual results, they can see cohort results, they can break down the data a number of different ways. They look at individual classes, they look across grade level bands, they look across, upper elementary, lower elementary. It's a nationally normed test, so they have it compared to others, across
You do get to, okay.
the country. So it's a fairly good test to measure some things, but it's also, keep in mind, one point of data. So you've got your sort of triangulation of data concept of, you've got your class assessments, you've got your fast bridge, and you've got other assessments like the forward exam. So if a kid does really well in the forward exam, they should, in theory, do really well on fast bridge, and they probably do pretty well in the classroom, unless they're test takers. And a lot of times you'll see kids that underperform. They do well in the classroom. Teacher says, I know you can do better than this, Johnny. But, they have the student, retake accordingly if they have to. But, yeah, it's definitely a point of data. And then new this year that we're working through is Act 20. Act 20 is a new law for reading that basically has us communicating and teaching and learning a little differently around literacy at the, PKK first and second grade with the result of a third grade reading test. So in other words, kids have to take a test and pass it by the time they get to third grade at a certain level, or they could face a retention in third grade potentially. And what they want along the way that's different than other laws that have been passed is there's a need for us to communicate the scores along the line with parents in real time. So if there's a confusion or an error or an issue with a kid that's struggling with something, early on we're required to come up with a plan for that student, and we're identifying a need and we're saying here's the plan to help rectify that need. Which sounds really simple, but it's hard because there's a lot of kids and the screeners have come through a little differently than we've screened in the past. So we're getting some scores right now with some large numbers of kids who have not necessarily met that screening requirement. So then, according to the letter of that law, you need to identify all those kids and have a conference with the parents and set up a reading plan for each of those kids. But therein lies the rub. First of all, it's not in place yet. It's in place for next year. So we're choosing to be proactive and do it this year to learn and figure out how the system works here and try to make sure we have appropriate resources for it. And Dana Marty can tell you a lot more about how that's going. She gave you an initial Act 20 update a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
She'll do it again in a couple months because
Is
it's
this,
important.
Ames Web, that's required by state now that we do this?
Ames Web is the contract that they pushed. Yes, so the Ames Web is the screening tool, universal screener that the state's providing.
So, the state does provide it? Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Does FastBridge kind of fix the problem that map testing had? I guess an example would be, my daughter tested out of all of the map testing by 6th grade, and so then she didn't have to do any English testing anymore. And then she tested out of all the math like 2 months later. So she wasn't doing any more of those map testings like the rest of 6th grade, 7th and 8th grade. And I always thought that was kind of, kind of losing some ground.
I don't know exactly what level
Does
that.
FastBridge test out at a certain point too?
I'm sure there are some kids who may break FastBridge that are just smart kids. There might not be tests that can keep up with some of them, but I do know that we haven't experienced
There's
that.
a lot of them with map
So,
testing.
And some of it becomes the kids who just test take really well and they can really, and it's awesome. I mean, it's a good problem to have, but
Well,
at the same time, you want to keep metrics so you can
yeah,
help a kid
and
grow
that's
no matter
what
what level they're at, yeah. So I can find out, I mean, again, I haven't heard of anyone,
I'm just curious
Testing
if
out.
Asbridge goes further than that, but,
I'd have to get back to you on that, I don't know offhand.
cool, I'd love to know, thank you.
So the goal with the FastBridge results then is that now we have structures here where we have grade level teams that are meeting through professional learning and collaboration, PLCs, the meetings that we're holding after school. And staff have been really good about, okay, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna look at the results of this initial assessment, and that's hard. It's a vulnerable thing for a staff member to put out their scores and say, here's where my kids are, but then that's how you can meet and talk about and work through the planning for that kid to support small groups and interventions, and it's bringing people together around the table to say, how can we support this kid's literacy needs specifically, or math needs specifically. So it's been a good thing. Same thing with Act 20. I think Act 20 in the end will be a good thing. Just there's a lot of hustle and work that has to happen to get things calibrated across the way reading is taught, across the whole state. And it's that's the phonics-based instruction that was installed as the core of that particular.
Act 20 started coming out.
Is that to a district, to an act?
Act 20 is different in every district based on the size, of course, but like for small districts, it's hard because there's not additional revenue given for staffing. So you're using current staff models and you're saying, okay, we're gonna move this into our intervention. So for example, where Dana Marty was able to focus past resources, she's having to rework and retool and move some people around and say, well, we're not gonna be able to support necessarily exactly the same way we did because we have more kids to cover now. We're screening more kids and we're having, by screening more kids, you're getting more results that are requiring support, or maybe they are, maybe they aren't, you gotta dig deeper into it. So it's causing our staffing model a little bit to be turned on its head. We're doing fine, we have 2 interventionists and Miss Marty, so I think, we can navigate it, but it's changing some of the planning and the scheduling that we've got. It is tough because, again, all of this stuff we're doing takes time. And so how much time do you spend then when you used to have maybe 10 parents you were meeting with about reading results, now you have 40. So how do you meet with those 40? What does it look like? And then how are you also not, I'm not gonna say falsely identifying, but just maybe prematurely identifying a kindergartner, for example. We just tested students who maybe this is their first time in school. Because remember, K4 is not required. So we have a K5 kid who's never been in K4. Now they're in K5, it's the second week of school. We're testing them and we're telling the parent now that your child is on the scale right now is low or struggling and maybe identified as having a dyslexia, which is the new thing that's part of the Act 20, which is identifying reading disabilities and things at an earlier age. So it's hard because, again, that kid maybe just needs exposure to more school and give it time versus, identifying them 2 weeks into school. So
It's not diagnosing dyslexia like that.
it is not. That's the other thing, is that part of the planning is requiring you, though, to mention that this could be in the range of dyslexic tendencies. And then there's a real rub there because schools do not diagnose dyslexia.
Yeah.
Pediatric neurologists do.
Right.
And those are not easy to find. There are huge
And they're
wait
long
lists.
wait lists,
And,
yeah.
right, and so in my family, I have several medical doctors, and it's one of those where it's a problem.
18 months
because-
it took us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, 18 to 24, and even more. So when you're saying to a parent, and there's very specific pathways that say you need to describe what dyslexia could mean for a kid, and again, it's outside of our realm of normalcy for schools right now.
Right.
The training is getting there. We're getting more staff trained in these strategies. So I think it'll be good, again, long-term, but we're just in that initial growing pain right now. So that's how we use our varied assessments. So Act 20 for the younger grades, FastBridge for all the grades pretty much 2 through 8, and then forward exam is given in the spring, March through April, in the spring each year. So we take those scores, and that's really what the state report card is pulling largely as the data. So I want to show you a little bit of a glimpse into the report cards. There are 4 areas that the report card looks at: achievement, growth, target group outcomes, and on track to graduate. So these are 4 different categories that have different weight. So the number is conjured up by taking different data points and having 4 different data points that come together to converge and have one overall score. Achievement obviously looks at, what's the overall achievement as it compares to the state assessment. Growth is looking at year to year when you're having a kid grow in ELA or math, or a cohort of students grow in math. That's saying growth over year is what they're measuring. Target group outcomes is saying, okay, you're a kid who's in some identified group. maybe it's, male, female, maybe it's, special education, regular education, maybe it's, socioeconomically disadvantaged versus non-socioeconomically disadvantaged. So in other words, different groups of kids that get identified, and you compare those kids and the targets that they're getting, the outcomes they're getting within those groups, those subgroups that exist. And then the last one is on track to graduate, which is looking at kids' availability to graduate based on what they're doing right now. They're predicting, based on these scores, this is the percentage of kids that would be successful in graduate high school. So what's crazy about that is you think this is PK through 8th grade, but there are indicators that they're showing that have shown with some reliable predictability to say, hey, there's some numbers you could look at that will push towards that graduation success rate. Mostly it's related to attendance, as kids that come to school tend to be better in school, but obviously it looks at some of those pieces with graduation. Right now, the score as it stands, if you were to dial in right now to the website, 22-23 scores are out. The 23-24 scores were just released 2 days ago, or Friday, last week. They were not released publicly, they're embargoed. So for 1 month, we cannot share them. We will share them as soon as we can. The reason for that is for the next month, we have a chance to go in and make sure our numbers are all legitimate and actualized and accurate within our data. And then we can put in rebuttals if we have any rebuttals or things we have to put in with the state. So we only have the score from 22-23. I can tell you that in your packet, there's an analysis that I did as part of my application to be superintendent, and that's the packet that's in your form that's in your packet. Basically, it takes the analysis of 3 years and kind of runs it through for you, looking at across the last 3 years of our scores, some notices and wonders that I had as a person who was applying to the job. The search firm WASBA put out a thing saying, here's our 3 years of data, go find it and give us a little bit of analysis. And so in looking through that, the report that's there, if I can just kind of look over your shoulder, really obviously first and foremost, it talks about how this is one point in time within an organization. There's a lot of other special things that are going on. So looking through this though, our scores over the past 3 years, which would include this, not the current year, of course. So 2020, 2021, 2022, our scores have gone down. So 81, 80.7, and then last year was 76.5. So the scores had gone down over that time. Why is that? Well, it could be a number of things that play into it, but for the most part, it's one of the things that I wrote in this analysis is obviously we have to talk as a staff about what goes into the assessment, what's being measured, how our students have the stamina for testing, and there's things like that, all the way to what's our curriculum, and what are we covering or not covering before this test takes place in the various grade levels. So there may be things you don't get to before the test occurs, in the scope and sequence, things like that. So there's some analysis that we're doing as an overall staff throughout this whole process. How do we sit as an organization here compared to our people around us? Here's where we sit. So we're at 76.5, the first one there. A little bit behind North Cape, Yorkville, Kansasville is sort of their own data set, but they're a little bit different because you look at the size difference, obviously based on last year's. These are all based off population size. It's all part of the report. So if you're ever wondering how I got those numbers, it's all listed on the state report card. So here we sit with our numbers. Again, solidly, we're in the exceeds expectations category, which is a great category to be a part of. There is a category above that, significantly exceeds expectations, and we are sort of nestled in the middle of that minimum up to the maximum. So we're sort of in the middle of that heat there of exceeds expectations. Again, a good place to be, but at the same time, we're looking to be better. So trying to talk as a staff about what we're going to be doing on our teams and with our data and trying to inform instruction a little better is really the goal. Breaking down some of these, so this is to get you an idea. The report you'll see when it actually comes out, what I'm planning on doing is putting last year's score, this year's score, and a little bit of a statement of difference. So this is just the starting of that slide presentation. So I wanted to get you kind of versed on, okay, how's this going to lay out? The way it lays out is they have the K through 8 state average is the bottom light blue bar, and then up on this screen it looks purple, but it's really blue. The purple is really our score as it compares. So right now they gave us the statement that we last year, 22-23, we scored better than 79% of K-8 schools. However, that went down from the year prior. So we were better than 85% of the schools the year prior, and then last year we were 79% of the schools. And we'll see where we land with stuff. So they give us some comparables there. Growth, and again, I didn't normally have bullets that are analyzing this, but it's sort of an exercise in why am I doing that if I'm going to be comparing apples to apples soon in terms of both last year to this year. So that'll be in the next presentation we have in probably December, because that'll be when it's officially unembargoed and able to be released. Late November, early December, but I'm not sure based on when our November meeting falls if that's going to be available. I mean, we know it's the third Monday, but I'm not sure if it's going to be unembargoed by then. Target group outcomes, again, when you look at this, you want to look at the students that are in, so in other words, the students that are in this particular group for achievement, 29.2 is the score of the students that are in our school. In this, so in other words, if you're an identified group, a subgroup of students that they've said is a group that needs support, your lower quartile, 25% or lower, that the average score of achievement on those students is 29.2. What you want to look at is growth. We have good growth. Our school does tend to grow kids over a year's time. They're making up some of the gaps and losses. So we've got a solid growth in our school, but we certainly have students that are coming in and targeted at a lower point, and then they've got a lot of growth to work through over the year's time. But they are making gains, and that's the good news. And then on track to graduate, this looks at, again, chronic absenteeism, the overall attendance, and then it does take into account the 3rd grade reading test and the 8th grade math test as the metrics for this particular score. So ours is the top bar, and then the state is the bottom bar. So again, outperforming the state, but that's not necessarily good enough, based on what we're seeing. So areas of growth, we're going to continue working on truancy attendance. The more students miss, the less likely they are to graduate. I mean, it's just a fact. And little kindergartner studies have been done saying if a kindergartner is truant, the chance of that kid going to high school and being truant is significantly higher. Because the habits are formed at a young age, and the values put on there based on what that student is trying to work through at home. So it's important that they get here. We have a process. We're going to be sending out our first round of letters. We already sent out a few initial letters because we had some students who are hitting some of those numbers that are getting up there in terms of absences. So we always monitor that every month, and those letters go out. And regardless of who you are, where you come from, and what you do, you get a letter. I get a notice every month from my kids' attendance, even if they've missed a 1/10 of a day, or if they've missed 100 days. So you get a letter regardless, because it's just a matter of you've missed, here's your number, please make sure you're communicating with school, letting us know what's going on. So it's an important piece to have. We've worked to establish PLCs in collaboration and data work as part of our focus for this year. And we're going to be continuing to develop supports with response intervention. So these are the kids that need more support, small group instruction, working both in the classroom and out of the classroom. We have tested students, and we're trying to align those results with different state assessments. So we're working through some of our data points to try to create a system here that understands the big picture of a student, not just the one score that comes on a state report card. So next steps here for us is really we have received an embargo. We've received the embargoed results, so we're going to work through those, and we get to talk with the state people at BPI to say, okay, here's our score. It looks like it's reasonable within a certain amount, and correct if there's any corrections that need to be made. The objection window is open, so if we have anything we want to add or change, we can certainly do that. And then we will obviously continue to analyze and report to the board at a date. I had said December, January, it might be November, December, depending on when these things get released. And then a letter goes out to the community regarding our results. I was told that typically we didn't go into too much detail, it was just results were shared. But we'd like to have an official, post that says, hey, here's where our score is, here's why the score is, and here's what we're doing to work through this. So again, putting it out there for the staff. And staff first, then community and board, so we've got the information to our community.
Mike, why do they test so early in the year and not later?
Test early?
Yeah.
Well, we haven't, the testing is usually done toward the end of the year. We test for Fastbridge early, but that's our own local
It's
assessment.
testing, we just don't get the results until the beginning of the school year for that.
Right,
previous
so
year.
these are last year's results we're getting now.
Okay, all right.
Right, it's all a little bit, you know, it is better than it was years ago, over a decade ago, when we did WKC, it was done in November, and that was the testing that was done in, 4th, 8th, 10th, and those tests were typically done in like November, and it was really early, it seemed early in the year, too early to be testing on grade level standards. So they moved it forward, well, the Badger exam came in, that was like a 1-year thing, then the Ford exam came in, and that was pushed to spring. So it's spring testing, which is better than fall testing, but we don't get, we still don't get the results though until, now we do have our Ford exam results. We get those ahead of time. We get those typically over the summer. So we knew our Ford exam results. We didn't know how it all calculated into the formula though until last Friday. So
Okay.
it's sort of a little bit time delayed. So I wanted to give you a chance to let this resonate and kind of, okay, here's what I'm thinking about it, and this is all based off last year's. I'll share this with you, so you can take a look at it a little more closely. The goal of it would be that you can ask questions and feel like you have a better understanding, so you're not seeing it for the first time when it comes across your board desk, in a couple of months. So that's the goal. That's why I wanted to bring it to our conversation today during the workshop. All right?
You're good. You're looking to see how this goes in the
Any
next couple of
questions
years.
at all? Okay,
Well done.
thanks.
20 was gonna be fun. Nellie kind of warned me about it, 20. When she first heard about it, what was it, like last year or the year before? So I knew that was gonna be fun.
Yeah, it's a big challenge, I think. I mean, again, it's gonna be good when things are at a spot where people have had the same training. And we've had our wonderful people here, we've had more than a handful of teachers who have gone through some of the different training that's out there. It's been very helpful because they're getting a better foundation of how to teach phonics instruction. But obviously, it's not perfect, and, there's still a lot of room for growth. That's just the instructional side. The other side of it is then, what do you do with the results, and how do you create those custom plans that are specific to kids, and then communicating with families to make sure that they get all those supports and they know what their kids do, the supports they need. So, all right. So that's what we had for our workshop topics. You want to?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Okay.
Wait, may I read a short statement?
Sure.
This is a workshop?
This is a workshop.
We have another meeting right after
Oh,
this.
you're having another?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will wait for that meeting.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion, or a second?
Second.
A motion and a second to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
All right. So we were going to adjourn into, as posted on the agenda, immediately following our special workshop here. All right.
Right. When might I say that comment about, save it for later?
Yeah, probably for the next.
Regular board meeting.
Can we maybe take like 3 minutes, because I just got to use the bathroom
I
quick?
was gonna say the same thing.
Okay. Okay, so we'll start at 6:30,
Okay.
6:26 right now? Okay.
Is the nearest one opposite the conference?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Run across the parking lot.
Okay, I go. I don't know how we're gonna handle this, because we don't really have a meeting this time.
No, but I think it's on the agenda, is the teacher.
I don't know. What we- I mean, he explained everything in detail.
Yeah, yeah, he talked to me before he
Yeah.
talked to you, so it's just chaos, it's just constant.
What's wrong with her? She turns in her keys, turns in everything.
Yeah, you didn't show up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. See, there's some.
What the hell is
Yeah.
that all about?
I know you got a busy schedule.
Yeah, come and help me paint and build a house.
I don't have any of
And
those.
watch Nicholas.
I don't have any of those skills. Any ability to meet this Wednesday?
I don't know what is on Mike's agenda.
Okay,
I'm open
All right.
to things, well, I have, in the morning will work for me, but, yeah, let's talk to Mike and see
Okay.
what works, but
All right.
yeah. Yeah, that's fine,
brilliant. We'll talk to Mike.
all right.
I don't know how long this meeting is gonna go, and I have to be somewhere at 7 something. Otherwise I'll just send an email or call him tomorrow
Yeah,
to find out about timing for potentially maybe Wednesday afternoon.
yeah, that would work for me.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You don't have pictures?
Sure, sure.
All right.
Welcome to the Raymond School District number 14 Special School Board meeting on this October 7th, 2024. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There will be no public statements tonight. I call this meeting to order. It is 6:31. Please join me in saying the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May I have a roll call of attendance, please?
Yes, Ed Robinson,
Here.
Janelle Wise,
Here.
Mike Powers,
Here.
Audrey Bassett,
Here.
and Patty Red.
Here. Verification of public notice pursuant 1984 Wisconsin statute.
The meeting was posted in all the usual spots.
Okay. We need approval for the agenda of this meeting.
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda of this meeting. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's approved. We move to the new business. A, approval of resignation.
May I read a short statement?
I'm sorry, there's no public statements tonight.
May I submit a statement to you? I would think as you are voting on whether or not I'm resigning, you would want my statement about the fact that I'm not resigning. And I haven't resigned, and nobody can tell anybody that I said I resigned, because that statement has never been made to anyone anywhere. May I hand you this statement?
May I have a motion?
Motion to approve the resignation of Ms. Leah Glasheen, effective September 30th, 2024.
Please make this
We
part
want
of
to
the public
thank
record. I'm so sorry to
Ms.
interrupt
Glasheen
my
for her
colleagues.
service
I'd
to
like
the
this
students
meeting
of Raymond
to be
School
part of the
District
public
and
record.
wish her the best in her future endeavors.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resignation of Ms. Leah Glasheen, effective September 30th, 2024. All in favor?
I
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We move to B, approval of new hire. Is there a motion to approve the employment of Miss Nina Beagle? Is that pronounced?
Yes, Nina Fiegel, she applied
Effective
for the
October
position.
7th, 2024.
Yes.
I motion to approve the employment hire of Ms. Nina Hagel, effective October 7th, 2024. We want to welcome Ms. Fiegel and thank her for joining the Raymond School District Number 14 team.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve the employment of Ms. Nina Beagle, effective October 7th, 2024. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?